Before we get into the video, I just wanted to say I hope you are all doing okay, and make sure to stay home and keep safe. The Shining is almost 4 years old now. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick and based on the Stephen King novel of that same name. And The Shining is perfection. Maybe that's debatable with some people, but I have not a single flaw with this film. I don't know how Kubrick and the team did it, but this film is perfection. The best horror film by 100 miles, and up there with my favourite films of all time, and of course it's my favourite horror. People are still speaking about this film. There is even a documentary about the theories about what this film means. My interpretation of the film is that the events in The Overlook kind of recycle its events, and I'm not going to attempt to explain the film because a massive part of why it's terrifying is the fact you don't entirely know what you just watched. And for some people they'll dislike that, and I understand that. I got my stepdad and mum to watch it again recently because they wanted to watch Doctor Sleep, but they found the film quite boring and didn't really like it that much. And even I'm not 100% sure what happened in this film. I have my own interpretation, as I said, but it is very up in the air. But the picture at the end of the film is so spine-chilling and unnerving, and maybe the most confusing part of the film, yet I still want it on my wall, and it just leaves you with goosebumps. While many people consider this a classic, as I said, it's not for everyone, which I can see because it's not a typical film. While you get films that are better and worse than each other, of course, they are all kind of on the same wavelength. But I feel like The Shining is on a whole different wavelength, and that will not work for some people, which is obviously completely fine and totally understandable. One of the main complaints I just cannot see, though, is that Jack Torrance is evil from the get-go. And I completely disagree. It is quite clear that he isn't a great father or husband from the way he looks at other women, and later in the film even kisses another woman, and seems to not consider how Wendy or Danny feel too much. But due to him being sober and even taking his family with him to his new job, I think it shows he still loves Wendy and Danny, or at least tries to, but he has a lot of rage inside him, and The Overlook felt that and ate it all up, forcing him to lose his mind and turn into who he was at the end of the film. We see him gradually turn more on edge and unnerved as the film goes on. The Overlook mainly showing Jack its ghosts, and in brief moments showing Danny too, until the end where the Overlook has completely eaten up Jack, and it goes full ghost hotel mode, and Wendy can see the ghosts, and everything goes tits up for just everyone in the movie. Another complaint with the film is that the acting isn't great, and that Shelley Duvall is rubbish, and that Jack Nicholson is way too over the top. And again, completely disagree. If you think this, it's totally fine, of course. But for me, Nicholson shows the normal family man that Jack is at the beginning of the film, while still being able to show us that he has stuff in his mind that is just bad and not right, which is an incredible thing to pull off. And Shelley Duvall is really great, I think. I mean, she just pulls off the caring and kind nature of Wendy throughout the film, whilst also showing some slight fear she has due to Jack once breaking Danny's arm, and the terrifying distress she ends up in running away from her own husband and forcing Danny to run away from his own father, who is also played greatly by Danny Lloyd, by the way, which I think most people completely agree with. But the concepts alone here are terrifying. The man you look up to as a child, the man who you want to be when you grow up, slowly turns and you see him hurt your own mother, who he also should love very much, and seeing him without apparent reason to as well. Just pure insanity, until the end when Wendy sees the ghosts. That would be extremely traumatic for both Wendy and Danny, even with the ghosts, and which we see in Doctor Sleep, that is true. One of the biggest things pointed out as a flaw with this film is the design of the inside of the hotel. Doors being placed where there is no possible way they could lead to anywhere, and corridors seemingly leading into nothing, and windows looking outside where you shouldn't even be able to see the outside world. And I understand why some people think this is a flaw, and my first time hearing this, I thought, oh yeah, that is a flaw in this film, because I didn't notice it the first time round. But the more I learn about The Shining, with how particular Stanley Kubrick was, doing 60 takes even if the first take was pretty much perfect, just to see where he could take his actors, and sending people out to see hotel designs so he could make them real and not just make them up. I struggle more and more to believe that something like this would slide past Kubrick, and watching the film over and over again, I think this adds to the nature that truly nothing makes sense here. The Overlook shouldn't exist, yet there it is, right there, in front of our eyes, feeding on this family's fear and tragedy and anger, and of course, their shine. There is so much to say about this film in the best possible way. I just find the process of Jack turning into a literal psychopath and trying to kill his own family terrifying in the thought alone, and the layout of the hotel and how it makes no sense, and the recycling of Grady and what happened with his girls, and just so many small things, like the room colours. When Jack is in the bathroom with Grady, the room coloured in red, which gives me the signal of the blood spilled and to be spilled by these characters in the room. When he enters the party as well, I think that is the confirmation pretty much that Jack has gone over the edge and he is no longer the father that Wendy and Danny knew. And on the topic of little things that you might not notice, first time around, the ball that Jack is throwing at the wall is the same ball that rolls to Danny near room 237, which, I mean, obviously we see what happens to Danny after room 237, and so that could mean a lot of different things. With room 237 is one of the most interesting parts of the film as well. What happened there? Why is Dick scared of that room, and why is it so dangerous? Obviously something awful happened there, but mystery makes it so much more terrifying. The film is everything right about horror, and I don't think any filmmaker will reach the wavelength of The Shining for a long, long time. Thank you everyone so much for watching. In my next video I am going to be talking about the sequel, Doctor Sleep. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe for more. Take care everyone, and keep safe, and thank you to anyone who does have to go out and work. And I will see you in the next one.